I will start at the end. I'll start with the ecosystem and why it's so important to build an ecosystem. So anything that we do in life, as you know, is uh, any habit, new habit that we form needs to form a connection to everything else that we're doing. Creating a startup is very much a new idea, and the more connections it has to all sorts of ecosystems, your clients, your advisors, venture capital, technology firms, the more connections you build early on, the more successful you're going to be. And when we look at clients that we help who are startups, much like Glorium, they have a lot to say about that as well. We can see that startups that pick advisors early on and pick the right ones um, have a much larger chance of succeeding. Why? It's because you don't want to rebuild the connections that already exist. You just need to find them and you need to become a part of that conversation. That is also true for product development, right? And how many conversations you're having with your potential clients. That is true for building and selecting the right technologies for your team. That is true for connecting to as many VCs early on before you actually need the funding, although we all need funding all the time anyway. But developing all of these connections before you start um, on your company and while you're working on your company, that is essential. um, so um, that is kind of the thesis. And now let me go and introduce some of the ideas that will hopefully help. Okay, so there are 6 different ways in which companies um, select the right people for their tech teams, right? So we call them consultant engagement models. And I will go over the basic 6 models. And of course, what's going to happen is you will be able to create hybrid models out of these modules. So the first one is very simple. It's staff augmentation and team extension. And usually what happens is you find the CTO or the tech lead that you really love, someone with subject matter expertise in your particular area. And then you might want to add on more people who are more junior or who are in some kind of a support role. And that's what we call staff augmentation and team extension. And usually that is all time and materials, but you can use the second model where you come to someone and say, I want an outcome based or fixed priced project. And you can easily get that for your MVP or for some of the later phases of your build out. The third model is called BOT, build, operate, and transfer. And that's basically when you hire a tech team, it builds everything, and essentially transfers it over to your full-time employees or whoever becomes a part of that management team that's going to run tech for you. There are also managed services or software as a service. And that means that you are getting consulting assistance for specific business tasks. There's also a dedicated team, right? So here, for most of the consulting, you can pay per hour and get whatever you need or as much as needed. But in a dedicated team, you essentially have a team that is standing by. It's assigned to you, and you pay them full time for being available to you full time. The 6th one is my personal favorite because it sounds so presidential. It's essentially called Software Development Center, or some people call it R&D Center. Some people call it Center of Excellence. And you recruit a new full-fledged team, call it that. And because a lot of the startups these days are AI based, powered with machine learning tools, etc., then that justifies your whole center of excellence. Um, and an R&D center title. So those are the models that we see. Um, let me look at the rest of the questions that I wanted to hire. What's an agile business model and how to build it? So let's talk a little bit about agility. I know that we speak about agile software development methodology all day long. This is slightly different. This is agility as it applies to your business model, to how you actually set up your company. And we define agility by your ability to quickly reconfigure strategy, structure, processes, people, and technology. And we look at everything that we do in terms of capabilities. Capability is something that adds a dollar to your bottom line. And being agile means that you can reconfigure strategy, structure, processes, people, and tech towards value creating opportunities and away from value destroying opportunities. So, that ability to quickly reconfigure is essential. And the reason that selecting a good tech team is important is because it allows you to reconfigure. All right. So that's why we value um, agility. All right. How to speed up your design phase, how to be efficient with the build phase, and the tools that we see being used the most. So, what we love to do and what we find very, very useful is for a lot of the founding teams, they come to us with their Figma designs, or we literally give them a link to Figma and we say, we're very happy to assign a business analyst to your project, but if we give you Figma, how much of that can you do yourselves? Let's see if you can start us off and come to us with a mock-up of just the screen mock-up. Okay, and then of course it's so easy to get a good designer on it, and um, to do the build based off of that. But we started literally turning founding teams away unless they come to us prepared, and prepared is having a very solid detailed idea of exactly what they would want to see, and being very realistic of what goes into the MVP. That M stands for minimum and not maximum. So that's how we've been able to really cut down on our ability to get a project going extremely quickly. Let's see. How to pick the right advisors and what they should be able to do for you. Picking the right advisors is most likely the most important decision. Obviously, um, the idea that you come up with is the most important decision, but that's the second most important decision that you're going to make, because your advisors should be able to connect you to your ecosystem in one step. All right. So pick people. If you need fundraising, pick people who've been there, done that, are connected to the family office networks, venture capital networks, any type of capital raising capabilities that you might need. Pick advisors who know your market, who know your clients. Pick advisors with huge networks that can actually connect you to your potential clients extremely quickly. It is critical. It's absolutely critical. So those are my remarks, and I would love to see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Julia. That was amazing. Everyone, please put your questions in the chat so we can get Julia some questions. But I think you make some really compelling points about choosing the right mentors in addition to the right team. We've heard a lot about choosing the right team, but I think you're the first that I've heard in the last 2 days talk about how important it is to get a mentor that is also going to, lead you to where you want to go. Do you personally have any mentors that you have chosen and if so, can you talk a little bit about how they have, influenced you and led you to be where you are today?
The very basic advisory board and or advisors that you would select for your company, and of course put it in your decks, etc., is extremely important. So advisors can be one of our uh, clients has a former U.S. ambassador as one of their advisors because they're interested in doing business internationally. So there are all
Mm,
sorts of right. So essentially, there is a difference between a mentor and an advisor. A mentor is someone who is interested in your um, let's say personal and professional development, right?
mm,
So I see so basically an advisor is like a mentor but to your company and to your idea. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
yeah, we have amazing advisors. So for AlphaMille, we one of our advisors runs one of the largest family office networks. It's called Ivy Fawn. Another one of our advisors is a PR, public relations maven. She
Mm,
is a contributing writer for Forbes, Newsweek, and Rolling Stones. And for anything that we do, we go to them first, and they help us with strategy. So they tell us how what we are contemplating is going to play out because they've already been there and done that. So they prevent a ton of mistakes, and their strategic advice is invaluable. I see a
mhm.
question. Okay, where can I find a business development advisor who knows done business agility? Okay, that's an excellent question.
Oh, and a
Uh,
follow-up. How much should we pay for
okay,
the
and a
advisor?
follow-up. Okay, I'll tell you all about it. Okay. So first of all, for the business agility, your first step for doing this is going to be going to Bain.com, Ernst& Young, EY.com, PwC.com, McKinsey, and I'm sure I'm missing another company. And so if you search for agile business model, actually our website also has something about business agile models, but I don't want to be self-promotional here, and all of these large consulting companies are so much better at this. So first of all, read what people are saying about it, and there are lots of presentation. There's a ton of information about building business agile models. Again, the difference is between agile software development methodology and agile teams. So once you look at all of these websites, you will see that there are all of these super consultants, at Bain, etc. firms, and that's your starting point. So you go to them on LinkedIn and you say, "Hey, who's doing this in my industry, sub industry?" Like basically, you don't want someone who just understands it conceptually. Many people do. Most of us, like myself, have some kind of a consulting background, or they have built it internally, for their organizations. A lot of COOs would be great at that, although not all.
Mm,
And essentially, if you go to the large consulting firms and ask them to put you in touch with someone who understands the business, agile business model in your industry, they will most definitely be able to do that. How much should you pay for an advisor? It depends. It depends on your business model and what you're doing. Advisory board members are paid a lot of times in equity. So I'm a fintech advisor that would take equity stakes in some of the companies where I'm an advisor. Uh,
mhm.
some of the more established companies, if you're an advisor, pay a combination of cash and equity. Some advisors will do it for you for free because you have strategic relationships with them, you're doing business together, and they would go and be officially advisors. So it's a negotiation, just like anything else in life. Any other questions?
Yeah,
And
that's a
then
good
you
one. And
beg.
are there
Begging helps at all times. Okay, first beg. Be like, please help me. So that's what I
That's so
do.
funny.
That helps a lot. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, begging aside, are there qualities that you're looking for when you're trying to find an advisor that you know is right for you? And how do you know it's the right fit? If you're being obviously you can't always be picky, but if you're able to be picky, how do you know it's the right advisor for you?
Well, if they can hook you up, you have the right advisor, right? So if they can make things happen for you, that's the right advisor. So if, for example, if you are fundraising and they can, thanks, Julia, I will back. Okay. Uh, so you know what? Here's the thing. Think of it now. Let's okay. So how they should be begging you to be an advisor to you,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Close.
Yep.
Okay. So a lot of people who are extremely well established in the industry, they want to be in the flow of new ideas. It helps them too. Does that make sense? It helps them to see what's going on, especially if it's their industry, it's their markets,
Mhm.
and if there's innovation, it is great for them. It's great for their networks. And you know, if I deal with my cohort, then obviously, all of us want to have people who've been, who are more experienced than us, and we also want to keep working with people who are the next generations, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times they will have the most innovative ideas. So advisors are interested in working with you if you are doing interesting stuff that is value added. So that's your business, that's your agile business model.
I
are
like
you
that.
quickly pivoting, right? If you have the ability to quickly pivot towards value creating and away from value destructing activities, you are interesting to people who are well connected. And if they can bring you clients, if they can shortcut your ability to understand your audience, to roll out products, if they can help you with your with your client pipeline, or fundraising, and you can have more than one. I mean, I see companies having 10 to 20 people on their advisory boards.
I love that. Do you have any tips for how to make your company more attractive to those advisors? You touched on it a bit, but are any other tips you can provide? Like how do we, how do we sell ourselves to these advisors? Obviously, we're doing it for investors, but how does it differ
Yeah.
maybe from the investor
There's a
community?
huge there is uh, there's a huge tendency to go towards your the alumni of your university. A lot of the alums are tracking what people are doing, and it's that should probably be your one of the first things that you can do.
It's great
um,
advice.
go to your university directory, alumni directory, and
Mhm.
see who you can get there. um, and also speak to your network, speak to people that you're working with, and see who they consider to be very knowledgeable. Okay, so
That's
that's
great.
right. Yeah, that's another thing that you can do. Uh, and if you are in a particular industry, go to the top people in the industry and say, "Hey, I'm new, I'm innovative, I'm disruptive. I'm doing this cool stuff. I would love to hear your input." And who can resist that, right? If anybody comes to us and says, "Oh, you know more about this than I do, and I'd love to hear you,"
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
demand for offering advice.
Yeah, that's great. It's really good advice. Yeah.
Mhm.
So final question for you. I know a lot of, lessons can be learned the hard way. Are there some lessons, maybe top three things that you've learned over the course of your career that you can impart to everyone, so they can avoid making some of the same hard left turns that you may have made, right? And
Mhm.
learn from your mistakes. You don't have to tell what the mistakes were, but what are some things that you've learned that can help other people avoid, some of the same pitfalls?
I would say that if you are creating a new product, then you should have questions with your potential clients way before you've even started the MVP. You should have a minimum of 100 questions, sorry, 100 conversations with your potential clients way before you have anything to show them in terms of technology. Just put it out on a PowerPoint, show them, step through the PowerPoint with them and get
Mhm.
their input. And if you sign up 30 or 40 as your clients by the time your MVP is done, then that's enough conversations. That's when you know that you've done enough conversations. Do not wait to
Mm.
do this even until you have your MVP. That's the biggest
Yeah,
mistake that I see people make, because
it's
you will pivot,
great advice.
you will guaranteed pivot so many times. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
only after you have a client list that you should start embarking on an MVP, in my personal opinion.
yeah, I think that's super smart. Any other words of wisdom or tips that you've learned the hard way, or or common mistakes that you see people make that we can help avoid people
Um,
making?
I would say that my biggest mistake was that I always considered myself a technologist, and I never wanted to see myself as someone who can sell. So I was always very intimidated by going to people and approaching
Mm,
them and saying, "Be my advisor, be a client, be this, be that." And I would say that for anyone who is doing a startup in any capacity whatsoever, if you're C-level, get befriend and really, really, really great salesperson and have them mentor you for a couple of months, and you will get over your fear of selling or approaching new people, or showing your PowerPoint to clients, you know what I mean, to
yes.
potential clients.
Yeah.
But it's much, much easier to do if somebody is there to walk you through that. And the way that we build AlphaMille team, we have two partners who are doing communications. They are certified in communications. One is a PhD in communications, and another one is certified in DISC, and doing that behavioral assessment of how the team interacts, team
Mm,
dynamics, and having somebody like that on your team from the get-go reduces the stress levels of your startup. So somebody has to be there, somebody who can teach you how to communicate internally, improve the team dynamics, and to sell. So internal mentoring in those areas, I've seen over and over again as a good pattern. It's also a pattern that VCs are beginning to look for. A lot of VCs told me that they're beginning to assess founder, not just founder bios, but also team dynamics.
interesting. Yeah, that's really smart. I mean, I know it can be really hard, especially if you're an introverted CTO, to go out and sell yourself or sell the
Yeah,
technology or sell the company. That's
yeah,
really difficult, right? That's just asking a lot of a lot of us. And it's hard anyway, even if you're an extrovert and you're outgoing. I mean, when it's selling yourself is always the hardest thing. And I think to your point, I mean, I think the more that you're selling the team, the more that you have a team, and I think that also makes it feel less uncomfortable when it's like, oh, I have an amazing team and they're building this amazing thing. It feels a little bit less weird and self-promotional too. So that's good advice, I think, that you're hinting at
oh
there.
yeah, and it's not right, and you never self promote, right? You were just discussing your product and the fact that you know what you're doing and all that, but
Right.
if you don't have the self confidence in doing that, it takes a lot of energy out of you. And by having
Yeah.
someone next to you who can actually who says no, it's nothing, and you're like, what are you talking about? I just had one client meeting and then I slept for 10 hours after that. And they're like, yeah, that's the first day, and then it's gonna get much, much better. So that's
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
think I think that's great advice. Yeah, and really good advice too, to remember that it is you selling the product, not yourself. and that, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will, right? So you have to be
Very true.
confident in what you're selling and excited about it. And if you don't convey that you're excited and confident in your offering, nobody else is going to buy into it. So it's good. That's great advice to get somebody that's a sales mentor that can help push you along
Mhm.
in that direction and make sure that because I'm sure your idea is brilliant, but if you can't show that you feel that, then people aren't gonna jump on. So it's good,
Yes.
really good
And,
advice.
and of course, the last one I would say is
Yeah.
reconfigure quickly, right? Cut your losses, as traders say often. Reconfigure quickly. Make sure that your tech team is what you want, or reconfigure, right? Make sure that your
Mhm.
product is what you want, or reconfigure. So building that agility in that mindset from the get go, and pivoting as many times as you need to, is basically
Mhm.
how startups survive, essentially, right? So I mean, that comes naturally, but I guess it just provides, the agile business model just provides a little bit more of conceptualization around that well-known concept of being able
Mhm.
to do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, any final thoughts or feelings that you want to make sure people are, have, and we're so grateful that you're sharing your personal experience and knowledge here. It's going to help a lot of people, move forward without needing to make quite as many pit stops along the way and running into as many potholes, right?
Mhm. Right, right. I would say that, if I were to summarize, number one, you are a part of the ecosystem. Define it. Make sure that you have the connecting points to it, through your alumni network, through your advisors that you're gonna attract to your business. Secondly, build an agile business model and select the right consulting model when you're hiring, plus outsourcing, and or
Mhm.
outsourcing your tech team. How you're doing this outsourcing can be done in six different ways, plus all of the hybrid ways, right? So you can put these
Right.
right, the six together in various interesting ways. And do not wait to build. Show PowerPoints to your potential clients. Use Figma to create something that you can mock up, show it, and then build the MVP.
Yeah, it's great advice. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Julie. This has been really insightful and really helpful, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to benefit from having heard you today.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you.